everyone asks about failures. I'm like, every day is an effing failure. Not just breaking rules, but doing things you don't know how to do and putting yourself in situations that are uncomfortable and hard, because those are the only ways you can grow.
One of the most unsung parts of learning or working hard at something is I have this opportunity to improve. Moving your body 20, 30, 40, 50, you have opportunities to be stronger. Is my 70-year-old self going to jump higher than my 20-year-old self? Probably not, but that doesn't mean I still won't have windows of improvement.
That's what's so cool about the human body, is whether you're very fit or you're unfit, you just start.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. So today I'm joined by a friend of mine who also happens to be one of the most respected minds in performance and physiology, Professor Abbie Smith-Ryan. She's a real powerhouse. She's a powerhouse researcher out of the University of North Carolina, where she leads groundbreaking clinical trials on body composition, metabolism, women's health, and nutritional strategies for performance and recovery. Abbie has this rare ability. She can take the most complex science and make it immediately useful. So whether you're a high-level athlete, a weekend warrior, or just trying to feel stronger and more energetic every day, she's at the forefront. She's at the forefront of exercise physiology and applied nutrition, studying how factors like age, our hormones, and even body type influence training and metabolic health. What I love about Abbie, besides her as a human being, is her blend of scientific rigor and genuine humanity. She's run dozens of clinical studies, published over 150 peer-reviewed papers, and still keeps her focus on helping people live better, move better, and think smarter about their health. This conversation is going to challenge what you think you know about performance, recovery, and just how your body truly works overall. Enjoy. This podcast has been brought to you by Cornbread Hemp. If you're anything like me, you're always looking for natural ways to support your body, especially after training or just chasing life all day long. I mean, I sometimes think the life part's almost harder and crazier than the training. And lately, I've been adding Cornbread Hemp's full spectrum CBD gummies into my evening routine. And honestly, it's become one of my favorite rituals, whether it's after a long day on my feet or just needing to unwind. These gummies help me settle in without making me feel foggy or off. They're USDA organic, made with real fruit, watermelon, berry, and peach. And what I love most is that Cornbread Hemp only uses the flower of the hemp plant. No stems, no seeds, no junk, just clean, potent CBD formulated to work with your body, not against it. If you've been searching for a more natural way to ease daily aches or discomfort, give Cornbread Hemp's full spectrum CBD gummies a try, and everything is third-party lab tested, so you know exactly what you're getting. I know that that's sometimes a concern and keeps us from even trying some of these products. And right now, my listeners will get on the Gabby Reece Show 30% off your first order and get free shipping on orders over $75. All you have to do, head to cornbreadhemp.com/Gabby. That's cornbreadhemp.com/Gabby. Don't forget to use the code Gabby at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/Gabby and code Gabby. Abbie Smith-Ryan, welcome to the show and welcome to my house.
I am so happy to be here.
So you and I met, just to give some context, we're working on a project with some other, I shouldn't say other, I get to work with 4 very intelligent women, and I was introduced to you by Stacy Sims and Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and it was interesting. So we did this shoot in Texas, and from outward appearances, based on your occupation, even your sort of very sunny appearance, I was surprised, because when we were sitting there doing these interviews, you're quiet and you listen, and then you sort of throw out your real thoughts or your questions in a very succinct way. And so the thing I appreciate is that you are a person who is in research and science, and you teach, and you're a mother of 2 young boys, 8 and 10, and you're in a relationship, and you have a full plate, and you're an athlete yourself, but you're also in the research part of it. So I wanted to take this opportunity. I'm going to do it a little different today, and I shared this with you. Normally, I sort of read the books and do all the things, and then we go on a journey. And what I thought would be more important today would be to find out from you what is showing up for you, what seems to be a problem you'd like to solve, what you're trying to work out in your own life and practice, and go from there. We're not going to talk an hour on supplementation. Okay.
Okay, that's
we
great.
might talk a little bit about supplementation, but we won't do a full hour on supplements. So welcome to the show.
I will just say that when I did meet you, I've known of you since I was a little girl.
Calm down with that.
And then I got to meet you in person and you were better than I expected.
Oh, were you jaded?
No.
Come on, let's hear it. People do that. Big dummy, here she comes.
Oh, no. I actually remember you playing in your sports bra. I'm about, 12 years
13
younger?
years younger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you were this strong, powerful female athlete. And then I saw you in person and you are just so kind and you have this unapologetic approach, which is amazing. You inspire me. So, and I have never done this. I asked, and I get to stay at your house. It's out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to meet your family and just have this real connection. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. I love the fact that when we were talking and you're like, well, can I come and see you? I was like, yeah, you can. Because I knew that was out of your character. So you grew up in Iowa.
I did.
So just give me a little bit of your own background as an athlete and how you were raised to lead me to where you are now.
Yeah, I think it's an important part of my story that I don't get to often talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by a single mom, but I had an older brother who was 3 years older who I started doing RDLs when I was like maybe 11, 12.
Because your brother was doing it?
Yeah. And I just really fell in love with this ability to go empower myself. And it was my time. I also liked an escape from my broken home a little bit. Was your dad just gone or? My dad lived in Minnesota, but
Okay.
he left before I was born.
Really?
So I did not have a very strong relationship with him.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was a nurse, so she worked a lot. And so I even remember, I'd spend all summer by myself at home, and I fell in love with movement, like exercise and softball. And I also fell in love with the community. Like I had these great coaches who taught me about life lessons and how to be a good person and if you worked hard. And so early on, I played high school softball as an 8th grader. I played basketball, track, and cross country. Mm-hmm. And early on, I found running. And the funny story is my homeroom teacher was the cross country coach. And I was late every day because my big brother brought me, and he is a little bit of a rule breaker. So I'd go to homeroom, and he's like, I won't give you detention if you come out for cross country.
Is that how it happened?
That's how it happened. I was like, okay, well, I do not want to get in trouble. So I went out for cross country. And I was like, oh, I guess if you run more, you get more fit. And I would go every morning and lift with the football team. My brother was a football player. I kind of like, Smitty, welcome to the weight room. But I realized like the more you run, like the faster you get, there's nothing political about it. And so I also we had no money. I wanted to go to school. I loved learning in the human body. And I earned a scholarship to a D2 school that had full gross anatomy. And I was able to, I went to run, but also do anatomy and human physiology. And that's where I found research too. Like as a freshman, I was like, oh, you can ask questions and answer them. And it was very early on, actually, one of my mentors joked and, oh, here we have a little dumb blonde. And I was like, oh, okay.
Is that what they said?
Yeah, but he actually turned out to be a great mentor. Mm-hmm. And that's actually where my love of body composition came in. We would get body fat tested like every season.
Most people hate that, just so you know.
I hated it. And I didn't know. They didn't tell us what it was about. But I ended up having 9 stress fractures in my left leg, which is my inside leg. Mm-hmm. And so I really started putting 2 and 2 together that once I got to a certain body composition, so a body fat of 15%, which is not that lean, is when I started to get stress fractures.
So just for people listening, inside leg would suggest you're on a track.
We would, even if cross country, we would finish on the track and do like pickups, or we would always run the same direction. I had a great coach, but I like to take things, you tell me to run a mile, I'll run 2. And so I also didn't know much about overtraining and fueling for your training.
Yeah. And you said something I think that is one of the most unsung parts of learning or working hard at something is I have this opportunity to improve. And I think if we could communicate to all people that moving your body 20, 30, 40, 50 and beyond, 70, 80, if you listen to Vonda Wright, it's like you have opportunities to be stronger. Is my 70-year-old self going to jump higher than my 20-year-old self? Probably not. But that doesn't mean I still won't have windows of improvement in some way. So how would we communicate to people to even experiment with that, to get that feeling versus, well, I didn't lose any weight? Because a lot of times, especially adults, they get to a place where they think exercise is connected to weight management versus, wait a second, this is a place in my life. Not only it is a little bit about control because you can be methodical, you can write workouts, you can do these things, but small little incremental improvements. How do we frame that up for them to then maybe explore that part of training?
I mean, I would say that's partly why I'm doing the research that I'm doing, is like my goal is to help people feel better and in a way that is feasible and obtainable where they're at. And I think that's what's so cool about the human body is like whether you're very fit or you're unfit, you just start. And I think the other motivation is, let's say you've never started, we'll start now. But if you have that longer training history, you have to do less over time, or you can do new things. And so I think there's this lot of, it's a really important message of one, just start. And no matter what, there's always new ways to do it. And that's the other fun part.
Yeah. So you finish school. What are the decisions in front of you?
So early in undergrad, I wanted to be an MD. I say I'm the wrong kind of doctor. I'm a PhD. But I realized like I had so much more to learn and I didn't want to memorize. I loved the research process. Oh, I have a question, I can answer it. And so I applied to master's programs, but honestly, my family didn't go to college. I didn't know what a master's degree was, let alone a PhD. But I was like, okay, I definitely need to know more. I had done some research. So I went to the University of Oklahoma, where I started my master's degree. And I actually went with one individual to work with one individual. And it was a terrible experience. A young female in a male-dominated world. And so luckily I was able to switch to, I would show up at the lab every morning at 6 a.m. to work on this other, like my mentor, Dr. Jeff Stout. I would just show up and they couldn't get rid of me. And I was like, well, what can I do? I want to help. And luckily I was able to work with him. And that is where a lot of my knowledge and insight around dietary supplements came in, and exercise and high intensity interval training. And so I ended up staying to do my PhD, really not even knowing what that was, of like, I just really know I don't know anything. And so it turns out the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Yeah. And so I stayed and did my PhD there. While I had these great opportunities to be very productive and independent. And then from there, I got a funny story, actually. I met my current husband in grad school. He's a couple of years older. And we applied to the same job at the University of North Carolina, which I'm at now.
Wait, you applied for the same job? Is that good for your relationship?
No, I was really mad. He had a job. He was at Oklahoma State.
Was this like you didn't know?
Oh, no, I sent him the job and said, hey, I think I'm going to apply. And he goes, me too.
He's like, that looks sexy. And that was okay? Laird would be like, that would have been like something in our house for sure.
Well, it was kind of serendipitous. So we weren't married at the time. And UNC, so I had not graduated yet. He had. So I hate to admit this, but he is the one who got the job. We were both interviewed, so top 6. He got the job. And then they brought me in for an interview on campus. And I didn't really know what I was interviewing for because the position was gone. But while I was there, they offered me a tenure track job, which is really hard to get.
Explain to people what that means.
I didn't even know. So a tenure track job means it's somewhat job security, but it's a very research heavy position. You start as an assistant professor, and then you have the ability to work towards an associate professorship. And then you can stay as an associate professor or move to full professor. So we both got the job. However, I was a spousal hire, which is good. I'm very grateful that I got a position. But it also, I went into the position with a lot of, I shouldn't be here.
Oh, you got more chip.
Oh, 100%.
For your chip, you got another chip?
Another chip. And at the time when I was hired, there was one other research active female. So it was all very incredible male scientists. And here I am, 27 years old, coming in and trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I do this? And I shouldn't be here.
When people are building their life, I think a lot of young people kind of think, well, I don't really know. Like, I have this passion. I don't really know how this is a job. And it sounds like in your experience, you followed your passion and sort of, did you always have the attitude of like, and it's going to work out?
I love this question because I am not a planner. I'm a big believer in like, you work really hard and you just follow where the chips take you. And so in this case of like, I'm from a blue collar family. Like I don't know what an academic, I didn't know what it was, but I'm like, okay, here is a position that allows me the creativity to do research that I really want to do. It's really hard. Like I have to bring in money and they say basically I'm probably not cut out for it. And here's this space where with time I can really make it my own. And so I really liked that ability to be creative, obviously have an income, but also think like tenure is really stressful. But I thought to myself, okay, well, if I don't get tenure, but if I put in all of my time and effort, then surely there's something else there for me. And that's really how I approach it. Even now, I'm like, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Yeah.
And we'll see. You work really hard and see what opportunities come.
Yeah. Why? I mean, listen, there's sometimes people go, and I've thought a lot about this as a female, when they talk about biological responsibility, right? So there's a lot of times you'll see where CEOs, a lot of areas are very even now. I guess dollars to women founded businesses is still a huge discrepancy. And then you're talking about in science where maybe it was really populated by men and then slowly but surely women have come into it. Because one thing I really thought a lot about is if you had said to me when I gave birth to, one of my daughters, okay, great. I appreciate your daughter's 2 months old, but you get the job. You can be the CEO. You're going to make all the money, but you're going to be on the road. You're going to do the thing. I think for me personally, at that time, the draw to be closer to my small children was very powerful. That is not the same for everyone, nor does it need to be. But there is sometimes this invisible part where also what I think women want can be different. And so I never felt depowered. I just sort of asked myself, what do you really think is going to be the actions and the decisions that's going to support what you think you really deeply want? Because it's so interesting. We get into these professional environments and it's like, but wait, that's my chance. But that's in conflict with something I want as a person and as a woman. Because I always address everything first, just me as a person. I'm not a male or female. It's just me. And then I have other things because I am a female. I was the one nursing my children. It's just that, right? And so I think within that is this conversation that I wish we had with younger women, which is, listen, you can be driven, you can want to be the boss, you can own the deal, all of it. But also, if you ever think you would like to be in a partnership or have children, try to pay attention to the things that feed you and fuel you, and honor those. And if you continue, you will get opportunities. Instead of, I think what happens is people sort of do all the things, they grind it out, and all of a sudden they go, well, wait a second, this isn't constructed the way I want it. And so I always wish that we would talk to younger women and just say, hey, these are the plates you're going to have to spin. Do it how you want. That's the most important thing, because it's your life and your family. But we don't do that. We sort of say, well, if you're going to do it, you have to do it like the guys do it. And I think there's a nuance in there that you still can sort of do it your way, because in the end, it's going to be your life.
Those are the exact conversations I have with my young mentees and even undergrads we talk, you don't have to pick a career, and you definitely shouldn't pick a career that your parents want just for you.
Right.
And you might be spinning some plates, but those plates can always change. And so I do think this generation is a bit more entrepreneurial. Like for me, it was like, here you just have this, and now I'm in an academic role, and that's kind of how the academy is set up. But I mean, there's so much more opportunity too now with social media and creativity and industry of, you can be a lot of things, but it doesn't have to be all at one time.
Right.
And you may have to juggle one plate and set it down and pick up another. But yeah, you're right. Like, I don't think anyone talks about even the mental load that it takes to, and I really feel this, and it took me a long time to figure out, like, why is my job different? Why do I feel different compared to my partner? Even though we have the same job, and it's nothing he has done, it's partly my values, and I love to put into people. But then how do you do that as well as be a good mom and a good scientist? And then let's throw in midlife hormones and community and your goals. So I think it's some of how we're wired, especially. So like, I don't know, I think there's still a lot I'm learning, which is why, I look to you too, of like, you have a lot of wisdom, and everyone does. Like, that's how we learn. And the best part about community is, how do you take those little things and bring it back to your life and your skills to feel better?
Yeah. And I always want to encourage people to have that confidence to ask themselves the question. Like, the deeper I go into living, the more I want people to go back into themselves. And there is a time and a place that we sort of have to follow the program, because somebody does have a ton more experience than us, and they can sort of show us systems and ways things work. And then it's like, I was raised for a few years by a couple that grew up with my mother, not my parents. And my Aunt Rhett used to say to me, listen, kid, we got to learn the rules and then we can break them. And I think that's true to even the path of sort of building a life. It's sort of like, kind of know some of the basic rules. And then once you get in there a little and you get a little experience, then go ahead and break some of them and break a lot of them, but learn some good foundational principles first. So
I'm going to write that down. Break rules.
Oh, all the time. Try parenting. I really tried to teach my girls that. And, parenting kids that are defiant is in different ways harder. But then when they're older, it's you feel so much more settled in that they're going to ask questions, and they're not just going to follow along because somebody told them to.
Sure.
And that included Laird and I, right? They were going to question us, poke us. And now, as you met one of my older daughters, even kind of direct us, teach us all these other things. So I think it's harder in a different way to do. but it feels like in the long run, it feels like it might have a lot of upside.
Yeah, I would add, I never thought about, I hate breaking rules, but I think it's not just breaking rules, but breaking society's view of how things are supposed to be, and not being afraid of failure. I think that is often, like, people ask me, when, like, everyone asks about failures. I'm like, every day is an effing failure, and so I think it's not just breaking rules, but doing things you don't know how to do and putting yourself in situations that are uncomfortable and hard, because those are the only ways you can grow.
Yeah. I think, and it's interesting because science is all about being wrong.
All the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think you have to be a special person who actually, I'm doing this research to show that my ideas are wrong, because then the right ones show up. And that's a really interesting approach that most of us don't want to do.
Well, the other hard part too is like that part it's hard, but now I think it's not, because I've been doing it for so long. But the hard part is when you study something for so long and it doesn't match your hypothesis. Like, you have to adapt and evolve, which is hard at first, but then it's really cool of, like, you just always have endless questions. And we talked a little bit about AI last night, and every time I use AI, I think to myself, I will always have a job. Because when you think about research and science and questions that's what's feeding the AI. And every time you ask a question, there's more questions to be asked. Now, they don't always come out the way you want them to, but that is a lot of introspection of, like, okay, this is how now I'll change my messaging based on the data, or how I'll design my next study to help have more translation, or based on what we learned.
Yeah. Is there anything that comes to mind that you really thought in your late 20s that now in your very early 40s, you're like, oh, I got that so wrong, and it was actually this over here?
Yeah, I mean, so my early work was all around beta-alanine. And
explain to people what beta-alanine is.
I know, it's so funny because back then it was in every product. So it's a hydrogen ion buffer. Beta-alanine is the rate limiting substrate to form carnosine, and carnosine buffers, we naturally have that in our body. So you can buffer hydrogen ions, you can maintain pH, so you can work out longer at a higher intensity. But the interesting thing, and I still think it kind of went away, it was in almost every pre-workout. It gives people this tingly feeling. My dissertation was on beta-alanine, and it helped improve performance. The best way to describe it is the first time I started taking it, I had just finished collegiate running. I was very fit. And I would go run for 8 miles, and it would be hard as hell. But then I'd finish and I wouldn't feel like I just worked so hard. And so then, not just our group, but tried to figure out what are some of the mechanisms behind how it's working, because pH is not going to be the only thing. So for instance, we looked at some oxidative stress outcomes in my dissertation, and it didn't really have much impact. And then we did another study when I was at UNC looking at kind of heart rate and fatigue, and it had a little bit of an effect. But it was almost like, who cares? Like what's I still think there's a lot of potential, but that's the way. There's no money in studying beta-alanine, especially it's just a little bit of an impact. So it was one of those things of, like, I spent very early years of my career down this line with this idea of I want to help people feel better when they exercise, but maybe this isn't it. Yeah.
Do you have science debate at your kitchen table?
We try not to. Actually, now it's a lot of my children of what's amino acids, or do I have to eat these polysaccharides? Oh, no.
That's really good. Yeah. Is there anything, because obviously, you've met Laird a little bit. Laird and I have very similar values, very different approaches. And they're sort of like polite, back and forth. I try to be polite anyway. And sometimes I just go in my mind and think, oh, no, you're wrong. But I'm kidding. But Are there things though that when you guys are talking about something where you have very different views on something and that actually helps you work through it?
Yeah, I don't know about different views, but we like there's I'll say it now, someone might steal my idea, but there's he does a lot of neuromuscular research. And a big question I have is with changes in hormones, there seems to be, like, I know I'll get these little musculoskeletal injuries, things that I wouldn't normally have. And then you throw in, there's this influx in women taking hormone replacement therapy of how does that actually impact the muscle and the tendon? And is it increasing stiffness, which may increase injury? Or would we need to treat our knee injury or I know several people that have had an Achilles rupture in their midlife, and so we've chatted about how can we take our expertise and really answer an important question, or playing to his strengths of being vulnerable enough. I should know it, but it's been a long time of hey, tell me, how could we use this method to answer this question?
So when you talk about if women in midlife are taking hormones, so estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, does that cover most of the things that women are supplementing with?
I mean, hormone wise, yeah. Okay.
So what about any of those would impact us and make us stiffer?
Well, I mean, I think that's the question. There is some research. There's one study that showed that estrogen across the menstrual cycle influences stiffness. But what happens, first of all, take the hormone replacement out and just talk about the daily variability with perimenopause. How does that change our injury approach, especially when I'm advocating women to be more active?
Right.
And, there's lots of information about how to do that. And one, just move. But then let's say we're adding in some progressive resistance training or some plyometrics, or I want to know, how does that hormone increase injury risk? And maybe it doesn't, but at a minimum, let's start to understand that, especially as we change volume, or even as we've looked across the menstrual cycle, how might it change our recovery methods? And that's, to me, where the fueling comes in, of how can we optimize in a way, I know me, if I have a calf injury and I can't train, I am not the nicest person. Of how do we actually help people live their day to day and feel good and prevent some of these injuries that come? Exercise is great, but if you exercise, you're going to have some, I tweaked my back and then that changes. How do we empower men and women to do it in a way that helps them meet their goals?
Yeah. So you have two sons. So in your early 30s, you have them, they're 2 years apart?
They're, 20 months apart.
Oh, 20 months. Was your second son planned as well?
Yes.
He was? And you chose 20 months?
I did.
Wow. That's close.
Well, I felt like I waited. And then I actually had a miscarriage with my first, and it was devastating because it was something, especially in an academic environment, you can't talk about that. Yeah. I was in an environment where no one had taken maternity leave before. And so trying to figure out, how do I maintain productivity as a scientist and still be respected and start a family? And so then I luckily had my first child, and I also, I don't know, you're only young once, of I wanted them close together, partly because that phase of life I could jump on,
Yeah. And do that. So I was just talking to a friend of mine who had a baby 6 weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. And she said, I feel like I'm a little bit in a hole. And I said, yeah, and unfortunately, you're the only one who can get yourself out of it. And you can ask for help. And we were talking about, I said, and I'm a lot harsher. I come from an athletic, I'm a lot harsher than her.
You're direct.
Well, and also even with myself, yeah, this is hard. Yeah, I'm sleep deprived, right? But what we were talking about is mini systems. When the baby is new, it isn't about the whole house has to be organized. It's okay, I loaded the dishwasher. Okay, check, mini win. Later, maybe one load of laundry got folded. Okay, check. I used order to help me get out of the hole. I used some kind of normalcy to say, I'm still me, life's still life. Because to go from a pregnant woman to a new mother is a very big transition. And everybody can warn you and all the stuff, but it's only till you're there. So for you, I'm just curious, because you are tough. I know how, I get a sense of how tough you are. How did you work that out in those first few months? What were the things that you learned that worked for you?
This is somewhat of a nerdy response, but I loved the physiological changes across pregnancy.
I did too.
And into postpartum. So like I always say, and you probably, I'll be curious if you disagree as a pro athlete, but I'll say the most athletic thing that you'll ever do is give birth, and you should train for it. And so even down to like what I would call a reverse dieting, like increased calories, key dietary supplements in different phases of or trimesters, and then postpartum.
Wait, don't leave there.
Okay.
What does that look like? Break that down.
So like thinking about first trimester is more, a lot of nausea. It's more about just like fueling something. Yeah. But then second trimester, there's a ton of brain development going on. And so higher doses of omega-3, creatine, and even protein. Like I didn't want to eat a lot of animal proteins. I didn't love protein shakes, like things that I was used to. So prioritizing that, even things like vitamin D, a lot of women will get bone injuries during pregnancy. So really trying to hone that in. And as an athlete, especially an endurance athlete, of like, oh, I'm okay if I skip a meal or like under fuel. But during pregnancy, I really wanted to finish my pregnancy in somewhat of a controlled caloric surplus, so that postpartum, it wasn't, like a slight caloric reduction helps you. And I wasn't worried about back to baby weight, but like back to myself.
Back to yourself. Yeah.
And so
did you do something in the last trimester for the baby that was important?
Yeah. I mean, continued high doses of omega-3, obviously like a multivitamin, movement. I think exercise and blood flow has a lot of benefit, a little like creatine, some of those things. And then I think the delivery itself, like I delivered both my children standing up in a squat position, and that's exactly how I trained. They were worried. They're like, oh, you're going to get tired. I was like, I squatted yesterday, of like, here are the muscles I've been training, and even down to the nutrition and delivery. Like they say, don't eat anything, which I get, but you should absolutely have some carbs and protein if you are about to endure, sometimes a 24-hour bout. And then how about postpartum? There's a lot of fiber that needs to happen so you can leave the hospital. You need to have, good recovery, and they're not going to feed you. So what do you bring in your cooler, or where do some of those, little athlete hacks that you can take, and that helps transition you back to home?
Yeah. I think it's so funny when they tell you sit in the hospital and they go, well, when you can poop, you can leave.
Yeah.
And you're just like, are you serious right now? Like you're some 5'2" nurse is like bossing you around, and she's like, yeah, when you can do that, you can leave. And you're just like, oh.
Yeah, but then I think to myself, like I learned after my first one of like, oh, I need to bring my typical multivitamin. I need to bring a probiotic. I haven't had any fiber or anything to eat. How the hell am I supposed to poop? And so like being aware of like, okay, that makes sense, but I need to help myself out.
Yeah, that's right. And I think when people talk about birth plan, they forget so much of these other little parts that you're gonna really want and need. And so I think it's so very helpful. I actually, I always say when you find out you're pregnant, if you've, not been training a lot, that isn't the time to go, I'm going to get in the shape of my life. However, you can continue moving pretty rigorously. We get these weird kick gloves sometimes that I think to people, you'll know if you're working too hard. And I use spinning, especially for my first pregnancy, to no impact, to safely sweat, which made it not only the time go faster, especially towards the end, the end, but like my ankles were never swollen because I found the way to sweat.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of women, they think, well, this is just being pregnant. It's like, no, there's little things you can do to really make that so much easier. I also think that we take these prenatal vitamins that if you take them on an empty stomach, if you weren't nauseous, like I wasn't particularly nauseous, they will make you nauseous.
100%. Yeah.
So eat something before you take these vitamins because they're strong. This podcast is brought to you by OneSkin. I think it's safe to say that you can tell I've spent a lot of time in the sun. So I was raised in the Caribbean and years of playing beach volleyball, training outdoors, being in the pool, and just really enjoying being outside and being in nature. And sun exposure has really been a big part of my story. And that's why I'm excited to talk to you about OneSkin. Now, I've been using their products for years, but now I'm happy to share with you their new SPF line. So I've been using their whole line of mineral SPFs, face, body, and even lips. And I'm loving how they not only protect me from the UV damage today, but actually work at the cellular level to help repair the damage that I've already done in the past. So with OneSkin, my skin feels smoother, it feels more hydrated, and I've even noticed some of those little sunspots and fine lines, they're starting to fade a little bit. So the face SPF, it's lightweight and breathable, so you can even choose tinted or untinted. I tend to train with untinted and walk around with the tinted. They've got the body SPF, it's water resistant, so great when you're sweating and helps prevent collagen loss, which is really huge for me. And the new lip, so the SPF lip, instant hydration, and it's been clinically shown to keep your lips healthy and firm. So everything is made with mineral zinc oxide, vitamin C, and the infamous OS01 peptide, which is what really makes it more than sun care or skin care. It's advanced skincare. So OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. And by focusing on that cellular aspect of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. So for a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using the code REECE, REECE, at oneskin.co. So that's ONESKIN.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co. And don't forget to use the code REECE, REECE. So your son arrives and you're a new mom. Are you worried about, like, I have to somehow get it all dialed back in so I can get back to work because I've had footing. I've had a footing there and I want to keep that footing. Was that crossing your mind at all?
Oh, 100%. Partly because with my first child, my husband went back to work a day later. Yeah. Like the semester started. So yes. So there's, I was nursing a child and writing a grant. But I think that happens to most people.
Yeah. But I think it's like, can you do it without layering in the unnecessary narrative that maybe it's this idea of, I do bring value. I have some experience and it's going to still be valuable in a couple of months.
Sure.
And not do both, because also it's sort of it's such a magical time. And I feel like the pressure on a lot of women that can get robbed because they're sort of in their mind thinking, okay, I've got to do these two things.
Yeah.
And I really hope, or to encourage people, because, everyone goes, oh, the time goes so fast. And it does.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
you already have an 8 and a 10-year-old.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
I think as you're asking me the question, the hard part is, so I do all human subjects clinical trials. And so that means when you have a baby, like you still have individuals on the trial. And so I have staff, but the way we do it is there's a pretty deep connection with those individuals. And so it is a little harder to just totally separate.
So the baby comes and, you got to worry about this and that, what you're eating. So they're not gassy because you're nursing. Did you lean on certain foods and supplements that really supported your recovery and then being able to, what is it, an extra 1,000 calories you burn from nursing or something like that a day?
Yeah, I really wanted to nurse my children. And so I learned a lot that it's mostly driven by hydration. And
sleep.
And sleep, yes. And I remember my breast milk always smelled like fish oil because of my omega-3.
Yeah.
And then there was some interesting research on specific probiotic strains because my boys were quite gassy. And so I would add that to their milk when they were little, like my milk.
Yeah, like what
Now I can't remember the strain, but it was pretty studied in infants. Yeah.
Is it refrigerated strains?
It is refrigerated strains, yeah. I don't know if it helped. I think it did. And then dairy, I think dairy caused problems in them. Actually, there's some interesting data now. Even around, you mentioned exercise and pregnancy, the science is even way better now than it was, 5-10 years ago. And some good groups out of Canada spearheading that.
Yeah. I'm not a real drinker. Alcohol's not been a regular part of my life. I will say though, I never had a problem making milk, but somebody did teach me that a dark beer would also, the yeast, I think, increases your milk. And so what was interesting is Laird would buy me like a really beautiful, like a very nice dark beer, and not as a drinker, but it did two things. It did make more milk, and weirdly, you kind of enjoyed it. You sort of were like, yeah, it's cool. Everything's cool. And it was this weird little gap in the day. And I didn't do it often. I probably drank, 6 beers my whole time. But I just remember thinking, it's kind of nice, this dark beer. Because I can say I'm doing it for the milk.
There you go.
But it softened that edge a
very
little.
Very altruistic of you.
Yeah, sure. That was very helpful. So let's fast forward to now and what you're working on now. And as somebody who has been looking at this space specifically for several years, what is showing up that you're excited about in what you're studying that you think is going to be really supportive of, I won't always use the word performance because very few people are in performance. Yeah. But I believe we're all athletes, whether we're officially athletes, we are all athletes. What people endure, the amount of stress and load that their bodies and systems are put under, you are an athlete. What has been showing up in the lab for you that you feel is important and you're inspired by?
I think, first and foremost, inspired to quiet some of the noise. Have you ever seen any of those memes of like, I have to eat 200 grams of protein and walk 10,000 steps and still look good and do all these things of like, my approach to science is what's almost like the minimum efficacious approach. Now you can always change it. So, I continue to be excited about high intensity interval training. And it's funny because like as an athlete, like you just do intervals. But in a way, like we've looked a lot at 10 sets of 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy. And they're in lots of different clinical populations and in women. And it seems to support kind of cardiometabolic health as well as muscle mass. And so anyone can train for 10 minutes of this. How can we put this in a very kind of feasible way? And there's a ton of health benefits, so bigger bang for your buck. And then when you start to put nutrition around that, we see even better changes. And so I think when I talk to most women, or we have had hundreds of midlife women and young women in the lab, and it's kind of heartbreaking to see how they're like, everything is changing and I don't know what to do, or like, I'm fasting, or I'm doing this and I exercise and I'm not seeing changes. And I don't have all the answers, but it's like, I want to give them the answers that they can actually do in their day-to-day like that, and also have a life and be happy. And so I think that's where some of these, exercise hard for 10 minutes, not every day. And can you do some nutrition around your training, whether it's amino acids? We've had some interesting conversations about fat. And that can fuel not only extra caloric expenditure, but also different fuel oxidation, which helps us be more metabolically flexible and just helps us burn fuel more efficiently, which might help prevent diabetes or cardiometabolic health. We are currently doing a study that's progressive resistance training in perimenopause. Twice a week, they come into the lab. And I wish I could describe this experience. Like, they come in, some of them have exercised.
Wait, who signs up? Like, I'd like to know the process of having, and are these mostly civilians?
Uh-huh. What do you mean by civilians?
Like, this isn't like girls from the track team.
No. Yeah. So right now it's all like our last 2 projects have been perimenopause focused. So we're looking at 40 to 55-year-old women. So we advertise always, Facebook. Now it's local because you have to come to the lab.
Yeah, of course.
And where we're at is it is a unique research triangle area. It's a little bit of a unique population. I do wish our sample was a bit more diverse. I do have hopes of doing more of a virtual menopause study. But right now, I can't tell you how many women we get. They're dying to come help. And women are the best participants because they're compliant.
I was going to say they're compliant.
And to be honest, their pain threshold is quite high of like, they just want to know and they want to give back. They want to use their experience. And the one thing that we do in our lab is if you come in, you might be giving us a lot of data and the visits may be long, but at the end, we sit down and give you a very comprehensive, like, here's everything we learned about you and how you can use it based on how many calories you burn, based on how dense your bones are and your muscle, and here's your hormones to say, like, I'm not an MD, but here are the things that I would go take to your physician, or these are the things that you might want to think about moving forward.
Are they scared when they come in?
Well, some of them, yeah. I mean, and even now, so we're doing this resistance training study, and some have lifted, some have never lifted, and yeah, there is a lot of like unknown.
How long is their program?
So this is a bit shorter, and this comes into another passion of research funding. And so this project I'm self-funding. Oh. And so it's 6 weeks, which is ideally we could have it longer, but I always think feasibility too. If you don't see changes after 6 weeks, and usually the first 4 weeks is more neuromuscular changes, and then 3 to 6 is more morphological changes, so changes to the muscle. And it's been like, I'll walk in, we have like a mini gym in the lab, and there'll be like Taylor Swift blasting and these women just pushing 500 pounds on the leg press and just like super strong and empowered, which is so cool. And they don't want to leave. They don't want to finish the study.
Oh yeah. I mean, tell me what to do, right?
Right.
So back up though on the 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy. You said it's just 10 minutes. So it's really 5 sets of hard and 5 sets of easy?
No, it's 10 minutes of work. Well, we've done even 6 sets. So 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy, 10 times. Okay. So 10 minutes of work.
Yeah.
Or
so
1 minute.
I would always look at it as 5 hard, 5 easy.
Well, you could also, we've done it, if you want it to be real bad, you don't do anything in the rest because you have all these metabolites accumulating. So the 1 minute easy is to get the blood flowing, kind of flush out the metabolites.
Yeah, and go again. So what do they do?
I mean, we've done biking. So like one study that we
with arms.
We use like a load electronically braked bike. I love the assault bike. If you can include arms.
That makes it more brutal.
I love it though.
Okay, yeah, of course you do.
So we'll do biking. Like we did a pretty cool study with knee osteoarthritis. Many of the women we actually had to wheel in with a wheelchair. They were that immobile. So on a bike we could get it where it wasn't super painful, and it actually significantly improved pain, and it increases muscle. And so it helps support the joint and inflammation. So you don't have to do 10. That's just the protocol, up to 10.
So what happens to the body? What's happening by that minute, that 10-minute workout? What's the body going through, and how's the body improving?
So one easy way to think about it is you're able to be at a higher heart rate than you would be if you were doing steady state. So it's almost like you have this high heart rate, high cardiovascular load, which has a number of downstream effects related to, oxygen carrying capacity, blood flow, capillarization, that then you rest, but you don't fully recover and you go back. So you tend to be in this higher intensity. And then another key driving factor with this is mitochondrial changes. And that's really where the magic happens. Most people remember mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell. But those mitochondria, more oxygen, greater density of mitochondria allows for oxygen delivery, utilization, kind of energy efficiency.
And to be clear, I mean, you're working a lot with women, but someone from the general population, male or female, would greatly benefit from this type of training.
100%. And I know that, so like my work over the last 8 years has skewed towards women, but I've always studied males and females. It was really starting to see, we actually did this really cool study in mice. I study mostly humans, but we were seeing some interesting findings with interval training. And how I collaborated with a geneticist and basically used these mice that had a paradoxical response to exercise. They would lose muscle and gain fat, males and females.
Is that real? It's like your biggest nightmare.
Right, but it happens in humans.
I know.
And so, but you can't control that. Right? They're saying, like it must be what you're doing outside of the lab.
It's so brutal.
Yes. And so this incredible PhD student in genetics did interval training with the mice or...
Could you tell they had this paradoxical response?
They were, yes, we picked those genetic strains going into it. And essentially found that, so interval training or just continuous wheel running, the interval training, women, the female mice, I shouldn't say women, the female mice responded to HIIT regardless. Like it kind of trumped the paradoxical response. And so it really led me to continue to use that modality as a way of like, we can see some pretty important changes with this small dose of exercise.
You will hear suggestions of, hey, twice a week, huff and puff. Would it be safe to use something like this? I think as just a go-to, because I think what happens to people is they'll hear interval training. Nobody knows what the hell that means. Do I need to go to the track? Like what's happening? But I think that this is also a really great tool to give to people. Like if you're not sure, row hard for a minute, get it together for a minute, go for it for a minute, and such. And so I think, half of it for people is they don't really understand.
Yeah, and I think that's the partly why we've stuck with this protocol. Well, one, it works, but you're exactly right. Like it doesn't really matter. Like let's say you're not going quite as hard as I would have you go in the lab. You're still going to see benefit. It might just take a little bit longer. And like I love interval workout on those days where I'm like, I don't have time. I got to pick up my kids or I'm really tired. And even if I only do 6 intervals, like, wow, do I feel so much better. And often gives you more energy. And so, yeah, it's like one of those things. It's like a low bar. Yeah. You just got to get started. I also love it on travel days of like, you only have, you only have 20 minutes, go hammer it out.
Yeah.
And the other caveat too, is if you're doing interval training right, you shouldn't be able to do it every day and you should only do it a few days. Otherwise there's a risk of not overtraining, but there's, more is not always better.
Right. And is there sort of like they go through the study, if they don't keep it up, when do we see the decline where all of a sudden a lot of those benefits are lost?
That's a good question. I mean, unfortunately, detraining happens relatively quickly.
Of course it does.
Yes, usually it's a couple weeks we see changes in mitochondrial content.
So like if I'm listening to this and I sort of think, well, I love my cardio because, we're always, especially as we get older, encouraging women like, hey, have proper power training. So like squat jumps or something where there's a little bit of sort of some impact. And this sort of go moment that we go at least for, 30 seconds a minute, whatever it is. But what's the difference? Someone listening and go, well, I blow it out. I go to cardio, I go to spin class, and within my spin training, we're sprinting. Why are they not getting maybe that kind of amazing result versus this type of structure?
Well, I would still say like those exercises do give you benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like it, that's great. This is also about time efficiency. And so one of the things with like a spin class and that more of steady state is you become very efficient, which is great for, let's say, fitness, but not necessarily if you're seeing fluctuations in your weight. And the thing about interval style training or changes in intensity is it still puts a demand on the mitochondria. So you're still seeing adaptation regardless of how fit or efficient you are. And that's really what helps us over time. And, for me, I used to really say like, oh, I only feel like I've exercised if I'm totally spent after. Right. But the interesting thing about interval training, like it's hard, but it's not the same central mediated hard of running for several miles. But a lot of the benefit comes from after when you're finished. We call it excess post-oxygen consumption. A lot of the recovery after is still your mitochondria are still replenishing, your energy stores are still replenishing. And so it has a big bang when you're done too. When
they're done in the study, meaning done with their interval training, what do they eat and drink? Like how do you direct them? What are the other changes? You said some nutritional things that also support what they're doing.
Yeah, so we...
I know you can't go home with people, but how do you encourage them?
Well, it's a great question, and it's a bit of a contentious topic right now.
It is?
Yes.
Why?
I don't know, actually.
Really? Why would that be contentious?
Well, so we've actually, over the last several years, explored what you do beforehand. So we, several years ago, looked at, okay, if we take young females and we do HIIT, we do high intensity resistance training, or we do aerobic exercise.
Is this 20s or before?
Yeah, 20 to 30.
Okay.
What happens if they eat carbohydrate before or they eat protein before? Really thinking like, okay, I might grab a banana. Very rarely do you grab a chicken breast.
I know, right? Boiled egg is tough too sometimes.
Right. So we did a protein shake and all carbs. And it was really telling that there was no differences during the exercise, which makes sense because most of these are going to leverage carbohydrates. But then after, there was a significant increase in energy expenditure. So the women that ate protein burned more calories after and burned more fat. So that was just an acute trial. Like we didn't follow them long term. So based on that, we did a follow-up study where we took more resistance-trained young women and we had them come to the lab and train with us for about 6 weeks, twice a week. And we fed them like a carb protein beforehand or after.
In what form?
It was like a shake.
Okay.
With mostly protein with a little carbohydrate. After, so before, after, or nothing at all, fasted. And there was no significant difference between before and after, but the group that consumed something before actually saw greater increases in muscle and in strength and in training volume. So a lot of people say it's not significant, but to me it's meaningful, right? But also post-worked compared to fasting. But it was these two studies that then we started to say, okay, think about most women, maybe myself included, of like, I'm going to train, but maybe I'm not going to eat beforehand. How do we begin to optimize that? And so we just finished a trial looking at protein versus fasted with a bout of HIIT in our perimenopause. Also accounting for hormones and really looking at microdialysis, so kind of fat in the belly, as well as expired air, so kind of an indirect method, to start to say of like, okay, if we do fasted or some protein before, will it impact energy expenditure and fat oxidation after? Some early data shows that it has accelerated energy expenditure with protein. Maybe not much differences in fat, but next step is to account for caloric intake and hormones. We haven't quite got there. We just finished the study.
Yeah, I mean, the hormone system too, it's like when you really get into that, it's so complicated.
It is. And what we're seeing too is it's largely impacted too by what they do day to day. Like many of these women might not eat until 11 a.m. It's maybe more chronic impact than what we're doing acutely, which has really also led us to start to look at our current study with resistance training. And we did one other study too, looking at essential amino acids before and after training. And that significantly augmented lean mass with HIIT more than HIIT by itself.
This podcast is brought to you by Troscriptions. Troscriptions has created science-backed, pharmaceutical-grade, physician-designed, and rigorously tested formulas delivered in a completely novel way to help you address things like energy, more focus, more sleep, less anxiety, and better immune system function. Troscription uses this innovative delivery system. So the Boucle troche, which is a small, very small dissolvable lozenge that is placed between the upper cheek and the gum. So it's very easy to use. Sometimes I'll be honest, I just drink it and eat it, but usually I put it in my mouth. They're extremely fast acting because they infuse their ingredients directly into the cheek mucosa. Troscription sources high quality ingredients globally. It subjects them to rigorous testing to ensure unparalleled purity and potency. Super important. Each troche is meticulously calibrated and scored, allowing users to easily adjust or titrate their dosage to meet their individual needs. All Troscription products are crafted in the US, adhering to strict quality standards to ensure superior efficacy and safety. So they've really thought about it all. They have the blue canatine, it gives you a little bit of focus and productivity. The Just Blue, it decreases inflammation and improves cellular health and energy. They have Tro-Calm, I love this one. It's relaxation and stress relief. So if you're really curious, they have a completely new way to optimize your health. Give it a try at troscriptions.com/Gabby, troscriptions.com/Gabby, or enter Gabby at checkout, GABBY, and you will get 10% off your first order. That's troscriptions.com/Gabby for 10% off your first order. So I know a lot of women get to a certain age, and it doesn't even have to be deep into, menopause or perimenopause or premenopause. They maybe have been working really hard, building their lives, their careers. Maybe they've had a child, maybe they haven't. And they really feel behind the eight ball. Like there's just nothing I can do. I've tried it all. I did the thing. Do you think a starting point is, hey, let's get your blood work done, see what's going on with your hormones? What do you think? And obviously everybody is different, and their genetics are different, their lifestyles are different, their sleep, stress, all of it is different. But if there were some kind of first principles that felt like a great starting point for women, is it do you guys take their blood?
We do.
Or swab or something?
Yeah, we do both blood work and trying to use some innovative technology where we do daily urine. So you can actually see the daily fluctuations. I think my first response to you would be get more data about yourself. And that doesn't have to be fancy tests. Sometimes there's a lot of things. Is it your brain? Are you super tired at night? Start to pay attention to those changes and then start to ask a lot of questions. And I think I'm in my early 40s, and I will tell you every experience I've had with a healthcare provider has been so invalidating. And I say that I feel, and I think this motivates me too, if I know the questions to ask and I still am not getting help of these poor women. And so, but if you have data points, hormones are helpful, but typically they're going to be quite different based on when you
when you train, actually do the thing.
Well, exactly.
Or which time of the month, how's your stress?
Absolutely.
How was your sleep the night before?
Yes. And so it's not just hormones. And symptoms, pay attention to those symptoms and know that, like I always say, you're not crazy. Like, what are the things that are impacting it? Ask lots of questions. That's where I would start. I do believe numbers are super helpful as well, especially saying, is it not just blood work? Like, I measure body composition about every 9 months.
You personally?
Uh-huh.
Or you do?
Uh-huh. And I have for the last 25 years.
You're not using those calibers, are you?
No, a DEXA and or an in-body. So in-body helps, or bioelectrical impedance. It helps identify fluid shifts. And so, like if I'm a little bit heavier, is it coming from water? Is it coming from muscle? Is it coming from fat? And numbers are really powerful.
Yeah.
How's my bone changing? And especially, like, it helps dial in goals of, like, do I want to be a little bit leaner? Do I, like, what is it, maybe more of a performance goal?
What lever would you pull if you weren't in a performance phase, but you were just like, hey, I think I'd just like to stay on top of the leanness, my weight. What levers would you personally pull?
Typically, it's dialing in consistency of my diet. For me, it's actually eating more and more high quality foods. It's also dialing in the intensity. Like, I'll exercise regularly for my mental health. Like, I just am not very nice if I don't.
Yeah.
But if I've gotten, like, if my composition has changed or I want to dial it in, I'll add more intensity.
Yeah. People don't realize when you train a lot, I go through this all the time where I'm like, you're actually working very hard and you're phoning it in, both at the same time, because And so how do people who know deal with it?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. People think, because you don't struggle.
Oh, yeah.
Or you do all the perfect things and so you have it all dialed. And that it is that constant adaptation and looking at and checking. And so it's just to remind people no one's arrived, because everybody's selling them something that they know and they have it all figured out and what's wrong with you. And you know what? I'm accessorized on top of it. It's like, it's insane to me. So
no, agreed.
It's knowing that you can even know and you still have to keep trying to ask questions and figure it out.
Well, and I mean, I think that's the thing I'm most passionate about and why I don't like the social part of, like, I do not have it all together. Most days I'm a hot mess.
Same.
But I want people to know that it's not easy, but how do we make it easier in a way that you can still take care of yourself, feel better, and do the things.
Yes. And I think that in a way, what happens is once you get into performance long enough, you realize that's kind of the best you can do. So you mentioned the study where it's kind of incremental resistance, adding incremental resistance. What does that look like? Yeah.
So we say progressive resistance training. And this is, right now everyone's talking about lifting heavy, but one, you don't want to lift too heavy. There is an approach to that. So in this study, we do baseline max testing. So leg press, bench press, and then we do multiple rep testing for lunges, overhead press, bicep curls, tricep extension. That must
suck, though. Testing?
Oh.
How long? I mean, what does that mean, multiple lunges?
We see how heavy they can hold dumbbells to do, anywhere from 2 to 6 reps, like a 6 RM test.
That's nothing.
Yeah. And so it allows us...
You don't go lunge until you just can't lunge anymore?
No, well, kind of, but we want them to be quite heavy. And so that allows us to start the training at a heavy load of 60 to 80% of their max. And then the reason that it's high intensity resistance training is this protocol we've used several times and published on it. It's you do 6 to 8 reps, and then you rest 30 seconds, and then you do that 2 more times. And then in between exercises, you rest for 2 minutes, and then you do it again, or do your next exercise.
Okay.
So we do leg press, bench press, lunges, overhead press, bicep curls, tricep extension.
When you say overhead press, do you mean with a bar?
A dumbbell.
Oh, good.
Yeah. seated overhead
These
press.
long ass arms don't like overhead presses with bars.
No.
Because my path doesn't work great with a bar.
Yes.
Oh, good. Dumbbells.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it's a whole body exercise.
Yeah.
And it's quick. And it also has that cardiovascular load because the rest period is low.
Right.
And so then what we do is if someone can do more than 6 to 8 reps or more than 8 reps on the third set, then the next session they go up.
What percentage? Like
it's usually about 10 to 15% for the legs and about 5 to 10% for the upper body.
I always laugh even to this day how heavy 5 more pounds can be.
Oh, especially for your upper body.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, not the legs. I'm talking about the upper body. I'm like, listen, it's 5 more pounds. Like, how could it be this much harder? And I have experience, so I know, and I go, okay, yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people, they don't realize it's all normal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, is this much harder? It's like, yeah, it is.
Well, and I mean, I always put it in perspective of I have been lifting the same amount on my bicep curls for the last like 8 years.
Oh, come on.
Now it's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But I don't need to like progressively at this point lift heavier. I'm doing it to like maintain.
Yeah.
So, but that is because I've chronically trained. These women do tend to lift and gain a lot of strength, which has been so cool. So one thing, we do, we'll test their max, let's say a leg press. We won't tell them what it is. And they'll, like, oh, you just maxed 500 pounds. And they're like, what? And so then when they're finished, they're several 100 pounds stronger, which has, cool translation in their life. They can feel that in their day to day.
Now, I know you're a scientist, so I'm asking you a non-sciencey question.
I'm a non-scientist at heart.
Yeah. When I hear that, I think about, working with people or athletes. How much of the progress, let's set aside like all of the data marks that you measure, when they mentally go, oh, wait a second, I'm so much more capable of something than I thought I was. I mean, not only that must be incredibly inspiring to watch, but also how much does that impact the real shift?
Well, 2 things. This is a bit of a pilot study, but from our first couple subjects, because of the empowerment that we saw, we added some additional questionnaires to try and capture that. The other thing that we've seen a huge shift in is it's very common for this life stage to deal with a lot of body dissatisfaction. We have increased rates of eating disorders. And it's also a sensitive topic to come in and get your body composition and be around these numbers. And my team has created this environment where it's all about knowledge and it doesn't matter. It's like really important to love where you're at. But I will tell you, there's been so much progress with a lot of these women when you add in that resistance training of not only do they feel more capable, they also understand of like, oh, the fuel and the like this is to be more powerful and it's for health versus that like what we were taught of be less, eat less, take away. Like strength is more about being more and adding to yourself.
Yeah, I think that is one benefit of coming from sports, because especially if you compete with and against women that were incredibly powerful, you think, man, I need more of that. Because I'm not genetically, I have strong parts, but I have trained myself to be in certain ways, I think, pretty strong. And that came from training. That wasn't like in my lap. So I think that when we, again, that goes back to that new relationship with, oh, wait a second, I'm not looking to be as small as I possibly can. I'm looking to have as much vitality and kind of feel good and sleep well and all these other things. I think we can actually shift what we find valuable as women, because men, it's like get as strong, be big, and for us, I think a lot of times, unless you have that sports background or you had a bunch of brothers or there was just a different conversation in your house, generally it's like a discovery of like, oh, wait a second, strong and moving things around has a real value.
Yeah, and I think it gives not just women, but I think especially in this life stage when there's many things out of our control, especially related to symptoms and
You mean like hot flashes and stuff?
yeah, and then just how like brain changes, body changes, life changes. Resistance training is one of those things that like you can continue to do and put into yourself and see change. So I think there's some benefit to that.
Yeah. And I was talking about how earlier you were at work and I was at work, and the whole conversation was about strength and what that means to you. And I think for me personally, what I have felt certainly in the last 15 to 20 years is I'm just trying to be strong for all the things. So if I'm strong, then I can do the work, I can be the wife, I can be the friend, I can be the mother, and go back to the thing which I'm really trying to do, which is going back to just being me and the best me that I can, and sort of sometimes forget all those roles and go back to that starting point and realize those are all going to be a secondary, byproduct of me. And a lot of us get taught, and it's easy to happen with your kids and with everything, like, oh, I'm all those things for everybody else. And I want to do those things too, but I've learned that really honing in on the me part, it doesn't make me less of those other things. It actually will make me more.
Well, I think that's why I love being around you. It's a good reminder for me in my 40s of like, how do you still learn to prioritize yourself and still be there for others? And I think that's an interesting balance. And what the science shows and what I know is that the 40 decade is probably the most important for lifelong health. But how do you do that? How do you do that when there's such few hours in the day and you are putting into everyone else? And so like I said, that's why I love even being around you, of what does it look like of someone that has done it, and how do we figure it out, and where does the evidence come in, and can I contribute anything to that evidence to start to make it easier?
Yeah. It's been interesting because now I am closer to 60 than I am 50.
Goals.
No, I say that, and I say this because this is like just thoughts that go through my mind, right? And I think I'm not going to go down like that. But I don't actually want to have that thought, because then I feel depowered, versus going back to the practices, back to the food, back to the lifting, back to doing things that make me uncomfortable, that I don't want to. I don't feel good most days. My knees hurt. I played pickleball yesterday. I was telling Justin, I was like, I should have been in the ice. I should have done a little something to mitigate the stiffness that I felt in my training this morning at 8 a.m. And I'm like, oh, there it is. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of us are thinking about what we don't want, because it feels like we're going to go out of control. Like, I don't know what 60 is going to look like. I don't know. Is my muscle what's going to happen to my skin? What's going to happen? The thing is, I don't know. But if I come back to, all right, I can control what I stuff in my mouth. I can control who I'm around. I can control what are my dominant thoughts, and I can control if I move or not. And then I'm just going to have to find out as I go. And if it's moving in a direction I don't like, then I'm going to have to relook at what I'm doing and say I might need to make some adjustments. Because I don't get scared, but I definitely have those concerns of like, what's that going to look like?
Yeah, I do too. And I hear what you're saying. I also think that's what motivates me with the science of not only have I learned to do it more effectively and efficiently and better. So I think there's something to be said. Like, obviously aging is going to happen, but it doesn't have to happen in this horror story that people talk about. Right. And I think that's one of my goals, is how do we do it in a way that really supports the body and the brain, that we can do now like less. I train less now and my composition is the same because I do it smarter. And I have more data to know what to put in versus, I used to just empty it out every single day. And now you can use data and science to do it more effectively. And how do we then translate that to real life?
Justin, you get a question.
Are you secretly opening a gym for all of your post-study?
I have this long-term vision of creating an institute for women where there would be an element of training where we would also capture data. I'm in some conversations. It seems like I need like a funder. Yeah.
I'm going to push back on that, though, as somebody who's trained for 38 years. I figured it out today in my conversations. 1987 was the first time I really lifted weights.
That's cool.
I like training with men too.
Oh, 100%.
The male energy. So yes.
I do too.
But what were those gyms? Those lady gyms?
Oh,
Remember?
yeah.
Her gyms or...
Lady fitness or something. Yeah.
And I get it. Like if you're just starting, cool, start there, get comfortable. I think there's something to be said for, and it doesn't mean with them, it just means around them.
No, 100%. And I think that is part of the conversation, not just training, but like my interest in women's health is not just for the women. It's also for like, we need to have this conversation where we involve the men, especially like if a woman is doing all of this, how does it impact family? Like it, and I think training is one of those elements of absolutely. I prefer training with men too.
Yeah.
Makes me push a little harder.
Yeah. It's just kind of gritty.
Yeah.
Something about that. I really appreciate that. So Abbie, I could ask you a million data point questions and we will, I'm sure, get there many times in all of the conversations that we're going to have. But if we were finishing up this conversation and I left an invitation on the table to someone listening, male or female, who's like, man, it's just not where I want it to be. I do feel a little bit in the hole. What invitations would you want to make for them just to start?
I love this question. I think the first invitation would be prioritize yourself. And that's a good reminder for myself too of, and if it's not working, find a different way. There are so many different approaches to healthy lifestyle and how we define that. And I think just starting in a way that feels sustainable and something that you can do consistently is, I think sometimes we go too big or not at all. And so sometimes it's small changes. I also think an invitation to find something, not a North Star per se, but is it a person? Is it someone that you can train with? Is it a type of training you want to learn more about? There's this open world of so much data, but it really needs to hit someone where they're at and what they can do in their day to day.
Yeah. Like if you said to me, hey, Gabby, do you want to run twice a week? I'd rather not.
Right. And you don't have to.
Right. But that's what I mean. So it's like really reminding people like you like it, you can do it on your own because your hours sometimes are weird. You're a runner, you know how to. Because by the way, the art of knowing how to run, most people who run don't know how to run. And I would definitely put myself in that category. I can run barefoot really slow on a beach, pretty good. But if you said, let's run, you'd see my gait, you'd see what my arms are doing. You'd be like, oh, no. So I think it's also, like you said, marrying things that reflect you. Because I that's how we continue to do it.
Well, in doing I've learned a lot about swim training. I want to try it. I've never done it, and I might be terrible at it, but maybe it's the love that I've been waiting for. Of I think always looking and taking new experiences, especially when it comes to lifestyle, because that is our life of regardless of aging, we've got one body and, we have a physiology that's always adapting and we can, try new things.
Yeah. All right. And this is my last question. I know you can't tell people what to take, but are you personally right now, do you have supplements that you take that show up for you that work for you?
Yeah, funny. I used to not believe in supplements,
Oh,
especially
really?
in college. Yeah, I didn't take any supplements. And then I started researching dietary supplements with a very skeptical approach of like, we'll do this study and it's not going to work. And have very, come to learn that there's just some things you can't get in your diet and there are really good benefits. And so I probably take I take a lot of supplements.
Yeah.
My top ones that I would say based on the research is omega-3 fish oil, especially related to inflammation and brain health, vitamin D, D3. It's hard to absorb in the diet. Lots of benefits on hair, skin, muscle recovery. Some really cool data on magnesium. So especially as we age, I'm a big fan of magnesium, particularly at nighttime. Helps with sleep. I do take daily doses of creatine, so about 10 grams, less about the performance side, more about the brain and cognition components. I'm a big fan of adaptogens and nootropics. So some of the changes in my brain that I've noticed, particularly around focus. And so things like lion's mane and rhodiola, schisandra extract, some of those things that help kind of leverage brain power in a lower capacity than I feel now.
You would notice. See, I don't notice because I don't use my brain the way you do.
Oh, it's so painful that it doesn't work the same that it used to.
There's that book, Strength to Strength.
I love that book.
But he talks about we synthesize things better as we get older.
Yeah.
And we're sort of rock stars,
Yeah.
We're going to do that math formula when we're in our 20s.
Yes.
So again, it's all there to balance out for sure, I think. Well, Abbie, remind people all the places that they can find you.
I'm working on that. I don't do a great job. I am on Instagram, Abbie Smith-Ryan, also on LinkedIn. Those are the two main places. And I try to translate some of the research in some of these avenues or online.
Yeah. Abbie Smith-Ryan, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.